Hawaiian people place great importance on speaking their own language and teaching it to their children. They are working to show language will strengthen their community and their future as a united people.
When you lose your God to pray to, that's really terrible. When you lose the land you live on because foreigners buy it up and you don't have money to buy land, that is also terrible. When you lose your own government and your sovereignty, that's pretty horrible. But when you lose your language, you lose the soul of your culture because you are forever disconnected from the wisdom of your ancestors.
For thousands of years, the Hawaiian people communicated through a language that was rich in metaphor and wisdom. Through the chants and proverbs, Hawaiians never lost their connection with their ancestors. They could navigate the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, and they understood the elements of nature. Through colonization, the Hawaiians almost lost their language. Through self-determination, they are successfully restoring their native tongue.
I could say, what is the value of English? And that person would probably say, that's the language of the world. Everybody speaks English. Now, how is it that everybody speaks English? That's because somebody said, you must speak my language. And those people said, yes, I believe that your language is more important than mine.
In our case, in 1896, 3 years after Americans overthrew our country, Americans then banned the speaking of Hawaiian language.
My grandfather was a principal of a school in Kaunakakai. My grandparents spoke Hawaiian. My father and my mother said a few Hawaiian phrases and used words with us, but they never spoke Hawaiian to us as children. And when they were raised in English and a little bit of Hawaiian, but I get the impression that they did not use Hawaiian as the language of the house. I think that was typical of many, many families, and that's the reason why we have very few native speakers today in Hawaii.
Mai kai pā ke kuapo noho kako a ai alako nei e kuiluna.
I met Pila, who is my husband today, while we were there at the university. And before our children were born, we decided that we wanted to raise our children as speakers of Hawaiian.
My wife and I put a lot of emphasis on the Hawaiian language because that was such a strong thing for us. So I'm very pleased to see that they speak Hawaiian to each other all the time, so it has become their primary language of identification for them and for our family.
That's why we decided to have the children be the focus of our teaching our language, because we were not getting results by just teaching adults the language. So if the children became the focus, then the family became participants in that learning of the language.
The first fight was the fact that Hawaiian was illegal. Just to start our Punana Leo school and get into the public schools, we had to fight a law that was passed in 1896 after the overthrow of the Hawaiian government that closed all the Hawaiian schools, and we were told directly that we couldn't do it. But we also knew that we had a moral thing on our side, and the general population would be shocked if they knew about this. So we kind of went around, we kind of did it anyway. It took us 3 years to change the law that forbade the use of Hawaiian language in private or public schools. But finally we got it changed through the parents and the community.
Punana Leo is a preschool, Hawaiian language preschool, and it started in 1984 on Kauai. Today we have 7 schools across the state, And our teachers use Hawaiian language as the exclusive language of instruction every day. We have a long waiting list at the schools. So many people are interested in having their children attend Punana Leo.
Academically, the children in the Hawaiian immersion program have done very well. They've outperformed the other children in the same school on their SAT. Now we have almost 1,000 children who are fluent speakers of Hawaiian due to our school programs.
They know that what they're doing is something that is very special. I don't know if they realize how special it is. The children who are in the 8th grade are only now really beginning to enter into discussions that are making them think more seriously about what this is all about.
My feel too that it's more than just a language, it's a philosophy. And I haven't heard it put that way yet in the classes, but as they begin to translate some of the phrases and things, the language is a way of living and a way of perceiving things. And hopefully as my daughter and son go through the program and graduate, they'll be able to continue on and come back to the community and add something to it.
For us and our children, we have worked very hard to make the school happen along with other very committed people. We trust that this will become very successful, and we don't settle for anything less. Because this is the first time that this is happening, there are many things that we do not have, and so because of that, a lot of the students need to be patient with not having a lot of books and a lot of real fancy equipment that other children may have.
Our biggest problem is teachers, because without a teacher, you can't learn. We're happy to see that now we have 100 majors in Hawaiian language at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, which is more than even English. We're the largest major in humanities.
When we think about success, I think that educationally, we're thinking about the product of what we're doing, the young person that will come out of school and enter the world. We need to have people who are able to improve the quality of life for the Hawaiian people in Hawaii, to make decisions for the good of the Hawaiian people in Hawaii. So, of course, this person would be able to speak Hawaiian and use Hawaiian fluently. So, I think once we have people who are able to do that, then we can say that we're pretty successful.
10 years ago, the Hawaiian language was almost dead. And today, it's flourishing because we have Hawaiian language immersion schools.
I know that when we have our children speaking Hawaiian, old people come up crying because it has an emotional effect on them to see that this is still living and continuing after going through such hard times in the past.
There's just a whole bunch of emotions that happens when the kids begin to speak. And through the language, it's given us, like I said, some sort of insight into who we are today.
I think our children realize that they have Hawaiian language, which is something that the great majority of children do not have. And that's a lot of power, and they know that. that speaking Hawaiian strengthens the Hawaiian community, it strengthens the Hawaiian family, and it will strengthen the future of the Hawaiian people.
After suffering years of invasion, Indian people living in the northwest state of Washington are now starting to take control over their land's natural resource. Nisqually tribal elder Bill Frank leads the fight for his people's traditional fishing rights.
Billy Frank is a national treasure, you know that. Probably most people here know that last year he was the recipient of the Albert Schweitzer Humanitarian Award from Johns Hopkins University in recognition of how he works to bring people together to solve problems.
That's gotta be.
So we found that,
way back before the society that's here today was here, we had everything here, and my dad had always talked about that. We had all of our foods, we had our Indian medicines, and all of our animals are well and healthy. Our salmon was running, and we didn't need anything from anybody. We had it all right here. We went through a whole lot of changes. We ceded a lot of this land all through this country. To protect our salmon and to protect our watersheds. Since the treaty was signed, it seems like the United States Congress and the state legislatures wrote laws against us, the protection of our culture and our spiritual life. Way back in the 60s, living on the Nisqually River where I live, I was 13 when I first went to jail for fishing and exercising our treaty. And but since then, I've been in jail over 90 times. This river right here, where we're standing, was kind of a battleground. The whole United States and Canada and throughout our nation was in unrest. And we were going to jail to bring attention to the United States to take our case and represent us against the state of Washington. And we did that. There were some real positive things come out of them days. Then in 1974, when the U.S. versus Washington decision was settled, as the treaty was interpreted by Judge Bolt, the tribes would divide the fish up to 50% for the tribes, 50% for the non-Indian, and in that decision came several principles for management of our salmon. And one of the principles was the tribes would be co-managers with the state of Washington, very unique throughout the whole nation. The Northwest Indian Fish Commission was born when the Bolt decision was settled. 20 tribes that speak with one voice. In 1980, one day I picked the paper up, and it had big business joins the fight against Indian treaty rights. Sea First Bank, Weyerhaeuser Timber Company, and Rainier Timber Company, and all the guys that runs the state of Washington. And they all put in $10,000 to fight the Indian treaty rights. And we said, well, we're going to boycott the Sea First Bank. And we got support out of the Colville tribe, and then they pulled out $16 million out of a little Sea First Bank on the other side of the mountain. And then I flew up to Alaska and presented our case. They withdrew $80 million. I no more got home, and George Weyerhaeuser called me and asked me if I could get the natives of Alaska to put their money back in the Sea First. I'd already talked to the president of Sea First, and we had our meeting, and we put the cards on the table, and we asked if they would go to Washington, D.C. and testify on our behalf against the abrogation treaties. They said, we will do that. and we'll do most anything that you want us to do if you will put the money back in. And so out of that came the Timber, Fish, and Wildlife Agreement. Tribes are sitting on most every one of the important decision-making bodies now when it comes to our salmon and our resource management here in the Northwest. We're building schools. Our tribal people are on boards. Our tribal people are in committees. Our tribal people are talking about the future of us people. You know, there's so many examples of things that the tribes have been doing. Not only for the tribes, they've been doing it for everyone. The eagles here right behind us are all over now, healthy, but in '76 they were disappearing here in the Northwest. And we had an opportunity to testify in Congress about that, and we got people together. We got the industry together. We got everyone together, the environmentalists, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, everyone, the state, the government, we all worked together to bring them eagles back. Today, there's eagles all over these islands and all over. You can see eagles everywhere. He's left a gift for us. The first platform of the Republican Party in 1932 happened to be the year I was born, was to protect Indian treaty rights. It was a very strong statement documented by the Republican Party. But today, they have a platform in Congress today and throughout all our states is a contract with America. And, you know, our treaties was a contract with America way back in 1854 and 55. People forget about that. The new Republican Party has taken the legislative route to abrogate our treaties. I try to speak for the salmon, and I think I'm getting less and less attention out there because it looks like that people are really don't give a damn about salmon. You can see the watersheds being cut down, and I talk about sustainable forest all the time. And I asked the non-Indian, you know, what does sustainable mean to you? I mean, are you ever going to make enough money? Do you have to cut everything down? Do you have to destroy our country? Do you have to take all the last drop of the water? Do you have to dike all of our streams up? It gets back to the salmon, whether our salmon will be here. And I think that if the salmon are gone, we're not very far behind the salmon. We're going to sign a treaty between Canadian tribal people, the Alaskan natives, and our people down here. And that treaty is about resource, and it's about our principles of our life and how we think, the Indian people. We will work together for the future of our children and our next generations to come.
Indian nations, tribes, and First Nations signatory to this treaty hereby reestablish cooperative control of natural resources essential to the cultural, spiritual, and religious rights of our peoples. Recognizing each other as self-governing nations, we subscribe to the following principles. The Creator has made us spiritually inseparable from the environment. We share a cultural legacy.
This document, why is it important that it should work? Remember the history of the last 150 years about what happened to us as individual nations standing alone. And look at what happened to the great forests as we were standing alone. Remember when the great lands that we speak about, the great fishing banks that we once owned, we lost those because we were standing alone. So this document puts us together as a great family.
Them are our relatives up there. Some of us speak the same language, and we've erased that boundary now with this signing of this treaty. And I think that our grandfathers and our grandmothers that are gone would be very proud of the Indian people out here now, because they have survived. That's what it's all about. And that's self-determination right on the ground, and it takes us all where we want to be.